First and foremost, it was a friendship. No divas, no drama backstage. And if somebody messes up, we'll all make fun of them. And
Greetings, Nick with Sweetwater here. Today I've got the extreme pleasure of being with my dear old friend, Mr. Kerry King. He put this album out last year, From Hell I Rise. If you don't have it, turn off this damn video guy, buy it right now because it's freaking excellent. And that's $20 you owe me, but I got to ask you, my friend. So at the risk of being obsequious, I'm sitting next to a man who's a pioneer, because in the 80s, you changed metal, my friend. You and a few select others changed metal. You made it more aggressive, you made it faster. You made it more, for want of a better word, it was darker. How did that come to be? Who influenced you?
my pioneers influenced me. Be that Priest, be it Maiden, Black Sabbath, of course, Richie Blackmore, a little bit of Eddie Van Halen sprinkled on top. Metal was fine as it was, if it never evolved, but everything evolves, like if we play something, for instance, like at Dawn They Sleep live, it's evolved since we recorded it. Like you said, we sped it up, we made it more aggressive, we made it scarier.
Yeah, darker is a good word.
Yeah, for sure. And, it was just what we felt was the evolution of metal.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that makes sense, actually. You mentioned Blackmore because you mentioned Priest, you mentioned Iron Maiden. When they did harmonies, they were like thirds, diatonic thirds. When you do it, invariably, your signature harmony is a parallel fourth. Like in Crucifixation, you've got a great example of parallel fourths. Where did that come from? Was that from the Blackmore thing?
I thought I made that up too.
Yeah.
I thought I made it up. I was going to call the album Crucifixation. I did what I should have done before, and I looked it up online, and apparently I was like the 8th person to think of that word. I liked the song. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to change the song, but I'm not going to name my album after bands that have done this for 20 years.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it could have been, Crucifixation has that big breakdown riff, and every time it comes up, it's a different interval.
It just sounds brutal.
Yeah, it's super fun to play, and I'd never really written a part like that, especially with a recurring drum fill.
Right.
That's very Sabbathy, Bill Wardish. And I told Paul when I did, I'm like, Paul, I wrote a part with recurring drum fills, man, you're gonna love it. I still get excited.
When the final world tour of Slayer's final run finished, that was 18 months, 147 shows. A few months after that, COVID hit and literally closed the world down. But yet, as soon as COVID lifts, you've got a 13-song album. Did you write all the songs during COVID?
Some of them, believe it or not, are left over from Repentless. Some of the ones going on record 2 are still left over from Repentless. So, just getting back to them. I had too many.
Right.
When I had too many for this one, I've got tons of stuff from this session that as soon as this touring cycle is done, we're going to go make new demos and see how close we are to recording.
Your writing process, do you come up with just a big library of licks and then develop them into songs? What's the Kerry King MO?
More often than not, it starts with a riff. It rarely starts with 2 riffs,
right,
unless I'm sitting down for a while and I've come up with 2 things that work together, but usually I'll make something up and it's got no friends yet. It's just waiting for his friends to be born and attached to it. And 99% of the time, music comes first. Every once in a while, I'll get on this kick and I'll write lyrics that have no music to go to and just, try them out in different songs when new songs get written and see where they fit. But 9 times out of 10, music's first.
You've written every darned word and every darned riff on this record,
yep,
but lyrics is nothing new to you because you did a lot of that in Slayer, an awful lot, actually.
Yeah, in the final album, I wrote all but one. So,
has that always come natural to you?
I mean, music's easier for me because you don't have to make literal sense out of music,
Right.
With lyrics, you got to have a point or it's not worth singing or writing down or something. You got to write something cohesive that means something to myself, fans, people that aren't fans that hear it's like, hey, he's got a point,
Gotcha.
There's a lot more thought going into it.
Now, what does it take to come up with a riff that's worthy of finding friends for? How do you determine when a riff is the one that's going to be the genesis of a song?
Well, that being said, it could be any part of a song. It could be a verse riff.
Right.
It could be a chorus riff. I've started songs with any of them. There could be an intro riff on this album. I wrote I wrote one of the riffs, and I'm like, that's a chorus for sure. Just because of the way I felt about it.
Gotcha.
And I knew that would be a perfect riff for whatever I said over it to be, recurring.
And when it comes to finding friends for said riff, do you use that riff as a catalyst, or do you go back in your library and go, that one would fit? How does that work?
I'll do anything.
Yeah, whatever it takes, right?
Yeah, because I do have hundreds of little blurbs on my phone, probably from the inception of a riff to when it did find friends, and there's like full songs that I'll send to Paul so he
Right.
gets an idea how the song goes, and then I'll write out a drum chart with time signatures from, say 30 seconds in, 42 seconds in, what change happens, what that's going to be it a verse or chorus, and then I'll write the idea of drums, be it fast double bass, snare on one, snare on two,
Gotcha.
what have you. So when we get together for the first time, we can play a song in 5 minutes and have a great demo of it.
Yeah, because I noticed on the album, like you've credited Paul with yourself and Paul being the arrangers of all the songs. So.
Yeah, because not for nothing, we're in the room together, and I wrote everything. I told him what to play, but there is gray area, like the drum connectors. I
Right.
don't have that,
Right,
and I
right.
couldn't do it if he didn't have the ideas to how to connect those things.
This is an amazing lineup you've got. It really is. It's almost like a metal supergroup. I mean, I guess Paul was to an extent a no-brainer because of your past history with him. But what caused you to choose Kyle Sanders apart from the fact he's a lefty?
Yeah, it's cool, right?
Yeah, it's great.
And he's a beast on stage, man. You got to watch out for that guy.
Oh, I've known Kyle for years. His brother can kind of play bass as well.
Every
so-
time somebody I know comes to this show, I say, just watch Kyle. You don't got to look at any of us. Watch Kyle. Everybody's the same. I wanted, we can start with Kyle, but I wanted first and foremost it to be a friend of mine.
Right. That's
in my
important.
age group.
Yeah.
I don't have anything against, people like, don't even have an example because I don't pay attention that much, but, somebody my age getting in a band with somebody 25. I got nothing against it. I just didn't want to do that.
Gotcha.
I wanted us to look like a cohesive group of people.
Yeah, that actually should be together. Yeah, that makes sense.
And first and foremost, it was a friendship. No divas, no drama backstage. We get done playing, and if somebody messes up, we'll all make fun of them. And
That's the way it should be,
it's a
man.
good
A band-
environment, man. I'm having a blast.
Good, because to me, a band is a brotherhood, in my humble
Yeah,
opinion.
and this one is for sure.
Oh, you can tell just from watching the sound check. And, I was talking to both Kyle and that Demel character, and they're both clearly happy, as they should be, darn it.
Everybody loved the record. Like I said, I wrote it all, so they didn't know what I was coming up with till I
Gotcha.
shared it with them.
And Kyle has it, going back to Kyle for a second, his bass tone is monstrous.
It is, man. Kyle's got a cabinet on my side, so I hear him. To where Tom had his beneath the drum riser. So I get a lot more bass on my side. And it affects my sound a little bit, but not much. But it definitely has more of a band vibe on stage, because in the past I would have myself and Paul. I think that's it.
Gotcha. Yeah,
And that's
see-
basically what it is on this, but
Right.
his thunderous cabinet behind me, I get plenty of bass now.
Gotcha.
I got a little bit of vocals, and that's all I need. If I go on Phil's side, I get blasted with Phil.
And that's
He can
exactly
handle
what
it.
Phil said about Kyle as well. He said, I love having him behind me because it's just thick and fat.
Mm-hmm.
So, and talking of Phil, what was your thought process between choosing that guy?
At the end of Slayer, when Tom finally told everybody, because I knew like probably 6 months before anybody else knew.
Right.
And he was just dragging his feet to tell people. And we had this photo session coming up. I said, listen, this isn't an argument, but I said, listen, you got to tell these guys. And if you don't tell them, I'm not coming to photos, because what are we taking photos for if nobody knows what's happening? So when he finally told them, I said, listen, and I told Paul on the spot, I've got something for you. I'm not finishing. I got tons of stuff. I got plenty of records worth of stuff we could put out. I mentioned that to Gary too, but as time moved on, I thought, people are going to tear this band apart anyway. It sounds like Slayer. What's it supposed to sound like?
Of course it is. It's you.
I realized that the more pieces I took from Slayer, they'd be right. When we actually did the European festival in 2018, not festival, European tour, Phil came out and filled in for Gary.
That's right.
For 4 shows.
Right.
And all Phil would talk about is wanting to be a part of my future. And I'm like, well, the answer presented itself. I don't think we ever even talked about it. It was just a given thing. Phil's my dude.
Right, and it works. I love the way your style versus his, they complement each other very well. Now, how would you describe the difference between your two lead playing approaches?
Phil's a mother guitar player, and he very melodic, to where I'm archaic as can be. It's complete clash.
Right, which is
That
why
works.
it works. Yeah,
Yeah.
it works great.
It's funny the way the Phil thing came down, because when we contacted him to come do the Slayer things, he had just quit Machine Head 2 days before.
That's right.
So it was like perfect timing. And I didn't even think of him. If you get me into territory, it's like there's no more world. It's just a territory I'm in.
Right.
So I'm only thinking of European guitar players, and I couldn't think of any that would be right. And Paul brought it up. Paul says, "What about Phil Demmel?" I went, "How did I not think of that?" And I hit him up and I said, "This is our situation. Obviously, time is of the essence. Do you want to do it? Do you think you can do it?" Because we had no time.
Right.
And he learned our set in 2 days. I couldn't do that if Judas Priest hit me up, who I love Judas Priest. If they said, "I need you to be out here in 2 days and you need to know an hour and a half set," I'd be like,
Yeah.
maybe if I had a week.
Yeah. Yeah, he learned to set the time it would have taken me to learn one of your songs from the
No,
old
man,
band.
it was very impressive.
Yeah. And I saw video of those performances. He was on, man.
I signed
He
a
was
picture
on.
today at the hotel somebody had from one of those 4 shows, because me and him are on stage with Fire. I'm like, how'd that happen? And then I realized it was that European run.
Going back to lead, how do you approach lead playing? Is it completely spontaneous, ad-lib in the studio? Do you have some ideas, or is it a combination of both?
Historically, definitely a combination of both. On this record, we were so prepared, I was able to work on leads.
Gotcha.
And Phil and Kyle, I think Mark even said when we were recording, he's like, "These are my favorite leads you've ever done." I'm like, well, I had time to work on them.
Gotcha.
Where I haven't really had time to work on an entire album's worth of leads since probably Seasons.
Gotcha.
Because
Gotcha.
as Slayer was, we would always be in the studio with unfinished material, and that usually means I'm going to be in there writing lyrics. So
Right.
I think the lyrics are far more important, because that's something that's going to get you hooked on the song more than a little 30-second lead's going to. So
Gotcha.
a lot of those times I would just go in and wing it, or I would try to come up with something the day before and build on that. To where these ones, all my leads were done by the time I recorded them.
Perfect. Perfect.
I did 18 in one day.
Wow.
Be it solos, little blurbs here and there, connectors of things, but I did all mine in a day. I went back the next day and cleaned up like 5 or 6 of them, but yeah, my fingers are a little beat after that.
18 in a day, I'm not surprised. Your picking technique, not only are you capable of incredible speed, but you are extremely precise. How long did it take you to develop that, and what does it take to maintain that?
You got to keep playing. If you take a week off, it declines a bit.
Gotcha.
If you take a month or 2 months off, you really got to go back to, like, you're not going to play Repentless.
No, you're
Like,
not. No, you're
we
not.
tried to sound check that today, and I warmed up 10 minutes. I'm like, ugh. It's just like anything you want to do well, be it weight training. You don't start with 50 pounds. You start with 10.
Right. And
You
just
know.
build up.
Yeah, you play as fast as you can. If you want to be precise, play to a metronome, and every day get a little bit faster until you where you want to be or where you need to be.
Gotcha.
And
then
that's true to me to this day. I mean, I've got age too, so that makes it hurt.
that was my next question: is do you have any tips? And those are the tips. Start slow. Make sure it's precise. Use the metronome. Build to where you are, where you want to be, and then keep doing it so you don't lose that.
Have you ever seen, it's a pick, and then like this part's got a little square thing on it, it's
Yeah.
got a little weight? Have
Yeah,
you seen
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Those things are cool. I don't really use them because I always forget I have it, but every time I find it, I sit and I play with it a little bit. It's just to get your arm used to the motion, and it's minorly weighted, so it builds up your ability to play fast.
Interesting.
I don't know what that thing's called. I got it at NAMM ages ago, like probably
Gotcha.
25 years ago.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've never messed with it. That's interesting, though. Yeah, I guess it builds up some sort of muscle.
Yeah, it's like having leg weights.
Yeah.
And for
Leg weights for
drummers
pick.
that do this.
I know. Remember years ago, you told me why you use these big triangular picks. Can you explain that to people who might not know?
A traditional guitar pick isn't anywhere near this big, but at the end of the day, you really only have 2 sides to pick on, because you play like this. If that side gets a groove in it, you can flip it. But with this one, I've got that corner, I've got that corner, and I've got that corner. I can turn it over, and I got 3 more. It took getting used to. It's not like holding a traditional guitar pick, but I mean, after a day, you got it down.
Cool. This will be on eBay, my friends, so look out for it and bid high. Now, another integral part of you is your tone. It's very unique. Like there's a
My
Kerry
tone's
King.
massive.
Yeah, and there's a reason there was a 2203 KK Marshall.
Yeah. When you and I first talked about doing that, Nick used to work at Marshall. then he was my go-to guy, and we were talking about it, and I said, this is what I want to sound like. This is how I want to achieve it. See if your electronic guys can do it. And I've used it ever since.
And it was based on the Beast, the amp that everyone thought that you'd had modified or was modified before you bought it. And it wasn't. It was just component drift. The other cool thing is we built in, like your EQ curve is the exact opposite of what most people think fast metal like yours should be.
Yeah,
everyone thinks should be scooped, but yours is the exact opposite.
I always hear that. But I mean, there's no denying if you're in a building, the guys are sound checking, I'm like, that's my guitar.
Yeah. You can tell.
It's significantly different than Phil's.
Yeah.
It's monstrous. It's Herculean. It's gargantuan. All those things. I achieved that without being too loud.
Right. Yeah. It's not hugely. It's just all enveloping. It's
it is.
wide.
That's what I say. It envelops you.
Yeah, it kind of hugs you nicely.
And the way, I think you probably know this, but when I'm on a bigger stage and I got 6 cabs wide,
right.
Head 1 will go to cabinet 1 and 4. Head 2 will go to 2 and 5, and head 3 will go to 3 and 6. If you're standing directly in front of one, you're not married to it because you've got all that sound combining to make your sound on stage.
And the great thing is you can't escape either because it's just this wall.
Yep.
It's Hadrian's wall, or Kerry's wall behind you, just sweeping you off the stage majestically and hugging you nicely. Well, it's a bear hug, really, is what it is.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so your EQ, it's a frown. I remember you telling me once, there's no room in my music for something that resembles a smile. So. So
I was right.
Yeah. So frown it is on the EQ. And also you're a diehard EMG 81 user. You have done, from my knowledge, you've always had EMG 81s in your bridge position, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now
I was always like, which one's the 81, which one's the 85?
Yeah, 85 is typically the neck.
Yeah. Thanks.
But yeah, so...
I haven't talked to anybody about pickups in so long. I'm like, I don't even know which one's which.
Yeah, because I like when I was talking to Anders earlier about your rig, I said, so 81, 85, he goes, no, actually 81 sustainer.
Yep.
Sustainer.
Yeah, when I went to Dean, I said, well, let's do away with everything that was normal in my guitar. So I went to the other company. You know, I went to Dean, I went to Sustainiac. Everything else is business as usual.
And that's a great pickup. Like the effects you can get from that, the feedback, the
Absolutely.
Harmonies. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
And you've always been a Kayla guy as opposed to Floyd Rose as well. What's the reason for that?
Because you learn on one, and that's what you do.
Right, exactly.
Say, for instance, I pick up Phil's guitar. Like, it's so different of how you got to mute the strings.
Right.
Like, this one is like I hold my hand like this, but that part of my hand is right where the saddle is.
Right.
To where the Floyd, you got to hold it more flat because it's a flat bridge.
Right.
So it's a completely different technique. You know, if you wanted to go from one to the other, you'd have to learn on both. Yeah. You know, me, I didn't have that kind of money when I was a kid, so you learn on it and stay on it.
This is, of course, one of your signature guitars, so you obviously were digging Dean a lot.
Yeah, we came up with this style. You know, my first one came out, and it was just the bottom with the intern stuff. I took the headstock and made it mimic what this does.
Which is cool.
I took a lot of the real estate off the headstock because they're like mini guitars up there. I said, you don't need this much real estate, man. Let's make it smaller. Let's make it, you know, look like they belong together. And then we came up with this body, and, you know, you've seen some of the new paint styles I have with the dip, and they're friends of mine. I'm going to see Chris Canella here in I don't know, 2 weeks maybe.
Chris rules, great guy. Had the privilege of working with him at Jackson and EVH. Just a thoroughly nice guy and a good guitar player too, by the way. Now, your EMG has up to 20 dB preamp.
Yeah, preamp.
Do you ever use that still?
You know, I used to, and then I started doing it as a pedal, just navigating that switch. I used to be really good at it, but I don't really do that anymore. I use one of Zach's overdrives.
Right, yeah, we were looking at your board, so you've got like a Zach wah into the Berserker overdrive. Mm-hmm. Does he pay you? Does he give you some sort of royalty? Because he should.
He should give me as many as I want.
He'll send you coffee at least.
And I got a flanger just for, you know, I have a fun bit, and I kick it on in Black Magic, or if we're playing Necrophiliac, which we're not, there's a spot in Necrophiliac, I'll throw it in. So that's just there for fun.
Yeah, so it's a really keep it simple, stupid pedal board. It's only really got two pedals you step on. So the Berserker OD for your leads, like when you open the wah slightly as opposed to just going wah, wah, wah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do big sweeps. Doing it like that sounds very 60s or 70s. And I mess around and do that once in a while.
Right.
Just you know, because you have that freedom when you're playing leads. Play the same thing, but present it a little differently, and you know, maybe you might like where you do it, and then you keep doing it.
Now, did Michael Schenker have anything to do with the way you used the wah? Were you a Schenker
I
fan at
wish,
all?
because he's a wah genius. And he only uses these 3 fingers.
I know. I watched him last year, actually. It was amazing. But yeah, 3 fingers.
I was in Germany once on a day off, and I was watching TV, and it was a Scorpions concert. Could have been MSG, but I think it was Scorpions, and Michael Schenker was playing. And I'm like, he don't even use his pinky, and he's awesome.
Yeah.
How's he do that?
He's pretty scary. He's got big-ass fingers, though.
Yeah, that could be. I've only met him, I think, once in Japan. We were doing a TV show together. It's weird how you don't, like, people think you know everybody.
Right.
It's like, there's so many people I've never met, and every time I think of it, it's great. I never met Eddie Van Halen, and I was a huge Eddie Van Halen guy in the first 3 records. I never met Bon Scott because I was too young, but I've never met Angus.
Right. Oh, really?
How does that happen?
Yeah, I would have thought by now you'd have met Angus.
Yeah, never been
Wow.
in the presence of Angus. Yeah, and dude, you would have thought, because of our friendship, me and Zach have played together once, and you know when.
Yeah, I do.
Yep.
Yeah, go figure, right? Go
Marshall's
figure.
50th anniversary. It's the only time me and Zach have been on stage together.
Finally, getting on to riffs. We've talked about riffs. This record is full of great riffs. Would you mind showing us a few? In fact,
It's funny, I played this album for Brian Slagle,
Right.
Millblade Records. I took it to his house, obviously, before it came out. And he's like, if you don't have a name for this album, you should call it Riff City.
yeah, I mean,
I'm like, well, no, I got a name, thanks.
yeah, because just the start of Toxic has 3 amazing riffs in it, and it keeps going. It's just it's a pummeling, a relentless pummeling of
Yeah,
great riffs.
I made one of those riffs up backstage in Detroit in Slayer's last run. And we were walking to the stage, and I just made that up, and I ran and got my phone and recorded it, because I never would have remembered it. Never.
That's another clue. If you get a great riff, record it,
Yeah,
as
man.
Kerry's just
Yeah,
said.
I
'cause-
recorded it acoustically. That one.
Right.
And I just did it acoustically into my phone.
That's
So
all
I had
it takes,
reference.
right?
Yeah, so I can have reference, get back to it on my day off, and address it. And then that riff started morphing into the other version that sounds a little bit like it, but
Right.
it's obvious those got to go together. You know?
Right. Could you show us the riff that it's related to?
The one I first did. That one took me a while to complete, because I had so many versions of it, trying to figure out and decide where those parts need to be to complement each other the most.
Right.
And that's, it keeps changing until you record it.
Right,
So
right.
hopefully at that point you're where you need to be. I mean, I like it the way it is, so I think I achieved getting it to where it needed to be.
Could you show us the intro riff that starts the record?
The only thing I haven't played since I
Oh
recorded.
no, it's because you use it as an intro technique.
Yeah. Sour note, but you get the idea.
Hey, that for not having played it during this entire
Well, that's
tour,
one.
was
That's
pretty damn good.
that part particularly. I sometimes play while the intro's on.
Oh, just to warm up. I'm going to trouble you for 2 more if you wouldn't mind. 2 fists, you're using that root flat fifth evil sounding chord. Could you show me how you start that song?
How I started?
Yeah.
It's super punky.
Oh, you're right. It's very, very punky.
Oh yeah, I did that intentionally. I call that my '80s punk tribute song. Musically, I wanted it to be and sound like the vibe of DI, like the Adolescents,
Right.
that style of '80s punk, and I did that musically, and I did it lyrically. Like some of the lyrics in that song, I never would have done in Slayer, just
Right.
because.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like I never would have said I need another drink in Slayer. It's another Slayer lyric. You
No,
know,
it's
but
not.
it works for me, and it totally works in that song.
Gotcha.
The only thing that I think is remotely not punk is the riff. Sounds like a groovy Kiss riff in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Super simple verse and chorus, and it lets the vocals become the star.
Right.
And it tells a story, and instead of a bunch of musical changes, it's a bunch of different vocal ideas, presented through the song.
Gotcha. And I love the way you have a gift of making chromatic stuff which should sound dissonant, be hooky in a weird way, in a dark way.
That one, to me, I always say it sounds like my groovy Kiss riff.
Your groovy chromatic Kiss riff. One last one, if you wouldn't mind, the intro to Trophies of the Tyrant. Perfect, perfect. Last question, my friend. Number one, thanks for taking the time to do this. Number two, once again, congrats on a great record and a great band.
Thanks.
And
we're having fun.
What would your advice be to anyone watching this? You've had a remarkably long career, like you're in your 5th decade as a professional musician.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. What would your advice be to someone watching this who'd like to follow in a few of your footsteps, my friend?
Well, after being decades in the same band, and it became work. It becomes a business.
Right.
You're not the same person you were when you were 20. People grow up. They grow different. Now that I've been able to do this, the importance of playing with your friends and being in a fun environment is more important than I gave it credit for. Of course, practice, get good people, but at the end of the day, get people, you dig being around and like the same music, because if you don't like the same music, that's going to be a problem down the line.
You think? Yeah.
But yeah, for me, my number one thing I talk about in interviews is I got my friends.
Yeah, and you can tell.
And they all happen to be good.
Yeah, happen to be really good. So not only practice hard, but find the right people. Like you said, play with your friends. And it showed in, like I said, in the sound check, you can tell.
Oh yeah.
The brotherhood.
Wait do you see the show tonight?
I can't wait. Kerry, thank you, my friend.
Cheers, man.